All right, let's get it. This is Prismatic Vision. I'm Prism, and today's topic is why know thyself? It's a simple question, but this axis point, aka eye of the storm, is where every journey begins. Is instead of what we all are aspiring to do, to develop, especially as a man, to expand and to develop and to grow and to nurture all these qualities, skill sets, things that we want to accomplish. It's all an expansive outward force. But in today's topic, we're going to go inward a little bit and take a hard look at where does all of that flourish from? What is the true source? So really what we're doing is reversing the process, and this is it's a contraction, and this is before this it's a kinetic energy before we blow up and blossom into whatever we're trying to become and do and achieve as high achievers. Of course, if you're new to the channel and you're following this is for driven men that are trying to create some sort of impact and change in themselves and their community and their families, and in anything that is near and true to them. So we're going to contract and take a few steps back before we can really catapult and blow up. And what that's going to require is that you understand what that source is to go inward. And that's why this topic is know thyself. It's so simple that most people don't take the time to do it. So it's a complex topic. At the same time, it's quite simple. But I want to review a little bit of kind of just the overarching importance of why, on this channel, we're going to be talking about a lot of different subjects, introspective subjects, that are going to break down the framework and the inner workings of your mind, and, how you've developed into the person that you are, how you've gotten to the place that you are. And, looking at that all, on a deep level, and to truly master oneself, to really be able to up level and rise up to ascend to the next level of you, and to up level and graduate that tier, kind of like a video game, right? You've mastered this level, you're ready to unlock the next level. That next level, think about it, it's the next version of you. It's the more higher, unfulfilled potential that you get to step into and realize and materialize, and of course bear the fruits of what that next level of you looks like. It's a discovery process. And at the same time, that momentum and aspiration of you, trying to become a better individual, that's really going to require that you understand why something is broken, why something isn't working, what's clicking, and looking at it from a solution perspective. Is we need to solve problems. And maybe I kind of brought this on from design school and business school, but we need to understand what's wrong before we can really fix something. And when we point the finger, we completely miss the point. And so living in this world and in fast-paced, stressed, professional environment, or wherever you're at as far as demographics, it's natural and it's instinct for us to point the fingers at various reasons why you're not here, why you're not there financially, professionally, relationship wise, so many different factors of the things that, naturally we carry on our shoulders and are responsible for. We so instinctively are used to pointing the fingers. And on this channel, and for true development, for long lasting solutions to problems, it's going to require that you not point the finger, but develop a relationship with the mirror. And that's taking a hard look at what you've created, what has gotten you to this point, and what's that relationship look like, as far as dialogue, communication, and what are the inner workings, the inner components, the habits, the rituals, the thoughts, the emotions, the feelings. There's so much that I can't wait to get into and talk to and break down, but we're going to have to take it step by step, because understanding thoughts and emotions, that's a whole download chapter that I really want to dive into. And then the mind and mindset and vibration, and I've studied so many different various topics that, I could be all over the place. And we're going to get there. But today we have to create some sort of primer and foundation on the structure that we're building from an architectural standpoint, right? The greatest version, higher version of you that we're building, it's going to require new thinking, new levels, new habits, new rituals, and all this is going to compound to break your reality. Enough so that the universe and all the forces that be start to conspire to meet your wishes and to work for you. Not that it has ever been against you, but so much so that you're going to shake up this world and your vibration and your new thought patterns and the commitment that you have to study thyself, to know yourself, and to be able to navigate with this empowered understanding of who you are and who you're not. That's going to allow you to navigate and calculate and move fluid, move smooth, move intentionally, so that you can start to reap the benefits of influencing your reality and being able to manage and change behavior. Perhaps go as far as impacting your community, or taking on more of a leadership role, or making big shifts in your family, or whatever is important and dear to your heart. You know where you need to be, and you will, as you connect more to your intuition, and as you follow a lot of the content that I'm going to be providing, that voice, that inner voice, that intuition, that calling is going to tell you the following steps and where you should be focused and paying attention. So we're going to lay the framework down to uphold and honor what you're building, which is going to be very unique to you. We're all here for different purposes, and we all have different passions, and we all have different skill sets and talents. But it's when you start to live through your gifts, recognize that, and surrender to them, is when you're going to really start to see, this is who I truly am. And it's not that you're going to be creating such a new world and be creating and changing things. It's you're just going to be actually just discovering. So we're going to go on a little discovery process, but we can't do any of that until we first, I'm a snacker, so I prepared some oranges because this video is very important to me. So first we gotta get hyped up, and I gotta get you on board to sign the contract to say, all right, or a commitment for you to understand that the first thing you're gonna have to do is take responsibility and be held accountable for where you're at. And I know there's a lot of variables and a lot of things you could say, but the more that you can shift away from making excuses or pointing the finger or looking at all these various situations, the economy, a pandemic, there's all these things that it's easy to get wrapped up in all that and to say, I'm here because of this. It's harder to look in the mirror and say, whoa, I got myself here. And my habits, the way that I think, the way that I see, the choices that I've made, and how I've distributed my time and organized myself, and how I've carried myself, and that has really got me to this point. I've attracted these people, good, bad, whatever, and being at peace with that in a form that says, I'm thankful for where I'm at, even though that that you have so much more to go, and that so much more is coming your way already. But just being at peace and grateful that, hey, at least you got this far. From here, you can only grow further from this point. And acknowledging that is the very beginning. So the more we can shift away from pointing fingers and taking responsibility and really just acknowledging that you have the power to change things, to influence, that you are a powerful being. And when you start to step into that and take ownership on a consistent daily basis, perhaps you could start weekly, right? Just on the weekends, just feel that power to know who you are and be assertive and confident in that, and then transition into those thoughts daily, and over time, eventually, that's going to shake things up, right? And that's going to shift, and that's a new you, because you're in a new thought pattern. All right. So shifting into this, taking ownership. I created this problem. I created these challenges. I can get myself out of them. Right. So looking at this from an engineering perspective, and looking at, okay, how do we break this down? How do we rebuild this? How do we transform this? And acknowledge that the glue that binds all this together is actually just you. And when you start to take out everything else out of the equation and remove it, all the variables, all the things that you have no control of, and you start to focus on what you can control, which is you, your thoughts, how you organize and structure your day, who you're around, what you allow to influence you, what you're watching, what you're soaking up, what you're allowing, what are the parameters and the boundaries that you're setting for what you want to absorb and allow into your delicate, gentle, yet powerful subconscious. So in other words, what do you want to be influenced? What do you want to be influenced by? And what are you willing to reject and say no? So it's only once you start to become that aware, because you're committed to yourself, now that you've finished watching this entire video, because you know how important it is to control and be mindful, right? So this is mindfulness, this is awareness, and this is all knowledge of oneself, knowledge of thyself, to thyself be true. This is what's going to make you a powerful individual. Peace generates power. And of course, the obvious knowledge is power. So the more that you know about how everything works, which Prism is going to show you a lot of videos and, God willing, a lot of content that's going to break a lot of these topics down that I've been passionate about, that I've been studying, that I've just been exploring. This whole journey, this discovery journey about myself. So as we start to dive into all this, like I said, the primer is the commitment that you have to yourself and how much you're willing to love yourself and how much you're willing to work on yourself. And once you can really strap in and buckle down and accept and process that and digest that from here, this point forward, everything that's coming your way, that negative, positive, you've attracted it. And it's sort of my consciousness, it's what creates circumstance. And a lot of it's shifting your vibration and just being aware of, what are the vibes? What's the energy that you're sitting in? What's the energy that you're allowing to contaminate or perhaps uplift and inspire you? Right, so this is all energy, and we're going to talk a lot about energy, but knowing thyself is important, and that's why I titled it "Know Thyself," because when we know who we truly are and who we're not, we can start to be true, and we can start to feed and water who we want to become, and we can start to focus. Our magnitude of focus can start to really laser focus in on the individual that we know that we can become, that we're worthy of becoming. And that's, of course, going to unlock new paradigms, and your whole trajectory is going to shift once you start knowing who you're not. And from a business standpoint, I used to be an identity consultant. So I've consulted a lot of businesses on identity, and the basic part of branding and identity is, let's figure out who you're not so you can be clear about that. And once you figure out who you're not, what's left is, this is actually who you are, and this is the focus of what you're trying to achieve, where you're trying to go, and the essence of the sense of who you are, the sense of self, your identity, your ego, and from a business standpoint, this is what the brand and the business represents. It wants to uphold and wants to honor and convey and communicate, and then ultimately market to make them more alluring, compelling, and of course attractive, to generate interest, leads, be influential, and to position themselves uniquely. All right, so that's kind of more advanced, and maybe I will do some brand identity stuff. It has a lot to do with uniqueness, and a lot of that carries over into self-development and inner work. if you will. And that's what this is about. Knowing thyself is so that you can be true and start to water your truth. Because we don't get taught this in school, and we don't learn this in college. And I have several degrees, and it took me a long time after college, after being stressed in a corporate environment and having all the materialistic, luxurious, things that I thought I wanted, but not feeling fulfilled and not feeling, confident and sure, versus, being aligned and centered and peaceful and happy and growing. That's the essence. So when you start to grow, and when you start to really, that's my fair warning, is when you really start to commit to your journey and say, hey, I'm gonna proceed with really studying myself and taking the time to know myself. Well, guess what? From that point, there's gonna be a lot of things that you don't like, that you're gonna have to, gonna be a lot of knots that you'll have to resolve, untangle, go research and play detective on how did I get here. A lot of it may have come from your youth, from your upbringing, from your family. A lot of it might not be yours, and it's been lingering, carrying over from other relationships or perhaps generations, but I digress. The point is, when you start to really commit to your own journey, there's going to be a lot that you're going to have to filter out. And you're going to have to choose, and you're going to have to make a decision on and commitment to where you want to go, what you want to become, what you want to see more of. These are questions that we don't get to reflect on in school a lot. It's questions such as, what would you do if money wasn't an issue? What really truly fulfills you? What is your heart's calling? What's something you want to do that you just haven't had a chance that has perhaps nothing to do with money? Because we're so drilled into money, bills, what's our position, what's our status, and all that fogs and erodes our ability to see clearly, to fulfill something meaningful, so that we could be individuals of substance, right? And we're like, something's missing, and you got this itch, and there's got to be more. Yeah, that's because you're not surrendering to your heart's calling and living through your highest gifts. So you're not on purpose, or you're not on track to fulfill your purpose. All right, so that's why I decided to make this one of the first initial videos, that just to let it be known that we're going to work on you. And that's the most important thing. And if you're like, yeah, well, that's kind of obvious, then yeah, trust me, it's going to get difficult, and it's going to get hard, because it's harder to face yourself than what most ordinary average people are doing, are just numbing themselves with whatever vices, entertainment, and staying busy and distracted. And then when they feel frustrated that they can't influence and change and impact and feel fulfilled and uplifted and feel alive and inspired, because that's how you feel when you're growing, and that's just biology. When something's not growing, it's dead, a plant. So that's our nature as living beings, as living creatures, is for us to feel like we're alive, is we have to be in this growing spurt, this growth spurt, and we have to be continuously growing and developing, and then only will you feel alive. And this old lady told me one time, the fountain of youth is learning, so don't ever stop learning. And that always stuck with me, and I've always applied that, actually. So keep learning, keep discovering, keep exploring, stay curious, and you'll be charged up with this energy of just this vibration of feeling happy, feeling excited for the next day, because tomorrow, next week is going to come with more lessons. It may not be happy. That's a big part of this channel, is I'm just going to be transparent with you. Not everything might be happy. It's going to be a roller coaster, but I can guarantee you, focusing on growth and pursuing growth and service and development is the high road. And it's a very narrow path, because a lot of people are just seeking happiness and only that. And there's nothing wrong with just chasing happiness and being happy. But when you're just like, I just want to be happy. Look, a mentor of mine told me, focus on growth and development and expanding and up-leveling and growing. And that whole evolution will make you happy. Now, it won't always be happy. because that's just how we learn, and that's how life works. Is it breaks you down, it rebuilds you. So, fair warning, when you decide to face yourself and truly work on yourself and make yourself number one, the most important project, you're going to be criticized. You're going to be called things. People might be like, yo, you're selfish. A lot of people just aren't used to that, because they're like, whoa, you develop and devote a lot of time to yourself. And you're like, it could be in all, you're going to see the full spectrum of it, from you're a narcissist, you're conceited, you're self-absorbed, way too selfish. Somewhere in the middle, you're going to find your balance. But the number one key point is self-love and slowing down and just putting a lot of the things that don't matter as much and all that secondary, and shifting and reorganizing and shifting gears to restructure your life and your world to make you number one. And that's the long road, but that's the high path, and I promise you that, because everything else is going to be temporary. When you start to chase happiness and development only through the eyes of your professional career, when you start to chase happiness and purpose only through your eyes of, the fashion or material things, when you start to seek happiness and fulfillment through just one lens, and it's external of you, it's very superficial, and it's going to be very temporary. So on this channel, what we're going to be talking about is true fulfillment, long-lasting solutions that are going to be aligned with your purpose to get you centered and grounded and more stable in a power position that allows you to generate power and create and influence and impact. And that's going to require that you pivot on this axis of you're number one. And however that means that you have to take care of yourself more and tend to that, despite all the challenges that come with that, because we're living in a crazy upbeat lifestyle world, depending on society and where you're living in. We all have responsibilities, I get it. But the most broken people are those that are too broke or too busy or have their plate so full that they don't have time for spirituality. In the end, the truth prevails, and the truth stands in front of anything that's fake and rises above it, right? So to rise above the depths of what's not true, which is symbolically your past self. Now, that's not true. That's not truly who you were, right? That's a lower version of you. It may have been just a layer of what you were capable of, but that's not truly your full potential. So what's last remains, and in the end, the truth will prevail. So that's why it's so important to focus on developing the true unlimited version of you. And so it's eternal. There's no, that the truth never dies. So it's infinite. When we start to look at what's possible for you, for what you're trying to create, for where you're trying to go, for what you're trying to explore, discover, and bring to life, right? And conjure up with your thoughts and your mind and meditation, prayers, or however you start to bring everything into alignment. What's that going to, all that is going to, all those forces are going to start to align to unlock and activate new versions of someone that you never thought, someone or something that you never thought was possible. And it only starts when you start to really acknowledge, I'm not really living in my full truth. And perhaps, most people that will be repelled are not really interested in this type of content, or you'll start to notice that they're content and they're happy and they're quote unquote happy, and they're like, you know what, all this self-development, all this self-growth, why? Like, I'm good, I'm glad, this is where I'm at, and I don't really, this type of content is not for everybody. You're not for everybody. And acknowledging that is number one in marketing and branding. So this eagerness and this calling to, want to develop and go, it's a journey in its own. Your journey is your own to overcome. That's exactly why Know Thyself is being put as the frame of mind, as the primer, before I start to diving into deeper topics. And the reason why I found this is the most worthy pursuit of all, is because this is is the hub, is the center to the kingdom of what you're trying to create. The kingdom, your kingdom being the reality, the life that you want to create and go present, right? So to bear all the fruits of everything that you've been working on and developing. The kingdom is the hub, the center force, which is your heart and your mind, because that's where you conjure up everything, and that's where everything stems from. It's your mind and your thoughts. So from that access point, you start attracting everything. You start attracting more possibilities, new people, relationships, everything, professional, perhaps romantic. You start to attract everything, and you attract who you are. So it's just this law of attraction, and it's this vibration that you put out. You shift your energy, new things are going to start coming your way. And that's what I mean by you start to unlock and now activate, new layers of who you are. That's the up-leveling process, and it's a step-by process. So I don't want to make this video way too long, but I'm going to give you just 3 areas that you can focus on, because after each video, this video should make you reflect, and it should instigate some sort of change. Because if you're watching, don't follow anyone that doesn't require you to change or push you to actually create some inspired action. You can watch this video and be like, oh cool, maybe it was inspired, interesting, new perspective. But if you don't go apply the knowledge and the wisdom that you have learned, created, or absorbed, then you don't have the experience. And that's wisdom. When you apply the truth, faith put in action, is when you start to really unlock wisdom. And that's how you learn. The best way is that's true experience when you go apply. So the change that I need you to create are these 3 points. Is number 1 is, and when I'm going to go further into these points in another video, but when you start to study yourself, is you're going to start to learn how to be more present. And that also means embracing peace of mind. How do you start to embrace more peace of mind? Because that's where you generate all your power. From an athletic standpoint, which I do a lot of fitness, it all comes from your power position. That's where you generate all your power. So think of your power position from a mental, spiritual plane perspective. It's the most peaceful state where it's neutral and you're happy and you're aligned and you're grateful. And that from that peaceful state is when you generate new ideas, creativity, thoughts. It's only when you're centered and you're in that flow state when you're capable of creating. And that's your most powerful state as a man, is when you're at peace with yourself, with the world, with those around you, and you're aligned and in integrity with what you know you should be doing. And when you're congruent with that truth, you can start to create more versus copying and comparing and criticizing and judging. And those are just lower vibrations of your past selves. Now you're in a creative spirit. Now when you're focusing on yourself, you're like, yo, what can I create? What change can I make? What can I share? Because you're overflowing with your peace. And that may convict you and kind of inspire you and compel you to go share, inspire, give, teach, or just be. And not do anything, right? So it's going to look like very different, but 3 points. Number 1 is learning to be present and at peace, is to be able to put aside temporarily the past and put aside the future and kind of zone that out. Not saying that you can't look back in the past and look and reflect on where you came from, what you've been through. We don't want to forget that. But there's a difference between living in the past versus not being truly present. You could be here, but you're not quite truly here. You could be here, but you're not quite truly here. And what that means is you're just here physically, but mentally you're in the past because you're just dwelling on things that make you depressed, or what happened, or mistakes, or what ifs, or I shoulda, or they did that, pointing the finger often and just focusing on problems and not what can be, what will be, what will be. So so we're shifting our energy, and that what will be, what can be, what shall be, and looking for that inspiration to flow through you only can happen in the present. And that's where peace exists, in the now. And as you submit to your calling, as you submit to the now and the forces that be, to be able to be centered and grounded in what you know you need to learn today, and in being who you need to be to get you where you need to go. That's peace, because you're grounded and you're present. So learning to be more present. And the other aspect of that is the other side of the spectrum of not the past, but it's the future. The future is when we're so focused on where we want to be, what we want to have, what we're trying to create, to the extreme, that we forget that the person in front of you right now is the most important part. Whether it be that relationship partner, whether it be your family or your colleagues, or just being present in the moment of your training or wherever you're at or whatever you're learning. So it's important to look forward and have a vision. And also remember where you came from and what you've been through, what you learned. But at times, being present, know that peace comes from acceptance. And maybe there's some forgiveness, and maybe there's a new relationship that you have to build with the future. Because once you become so obsessed with the future and I want this, career, home, house, money or things, or I want to become that. Once you start, then that indirectly says that you chasing and seeking all these things, it indirectly communicates that you're not happy and that you're not enough without these things, because you give so much importance and value to that. And that hasn't even existed. So the future doesn't exist. Neither does the past. All that exists is the now. And that's the most valuable thing that you have, and you're not there. You're dreaming up things, and you're putting so much value and importance that you can't be here. And so being present, being more present and learning to be more present is how you could study more of yourself, because the true you will reveal itself in the space, in quietness, and you reflecting, go doing more of what you love, and just being, forgetting everything else and just being present and focusing on that person that you know that you're making a difference with, that conversation with your child or whatever. So number one, be present. Number two is to be present and to be more peaceful and in a state of acceptance and gratitude. You have to start to really minimize and purge and simplify your life. So this is step number two, is to really bring more into your life. If you think of it as a closet, you have to really say what's taking up space. What do I no longer need, and what is not adding to where I'm going, right? Maybe before you're like, I like to go to all these 5 different places, and I like to go clubbing, and I like to, I like libraries, and I like all these 12 different sports. But that was older versions of you, and maybe you're like, you know what? I just want to focus on these 3 sports. And so what's taking up space that you could utilize for more things and more blessings to come into your life? So I know that's kind of just the analogy of the closet, but a lot of it is in your head. A lot of it is in your mind. And what can you purge out that is adding stress, or just simply, sometimes it's the most subtle things that are holding you back. And they're hindering you more than really pushing you and, facilitating you to break into what's possible. So it's the subtlest things sometimes of what we carry as baggage, because it's all weight, right? We want to fly and we want to expand, but when you have all this weight that lingers, think of it as a residue from things that happened in your past, well, you got to be able to just let them go. And letting go is very simultaneous to simplifying your life. So sometimes it's, shit, you're so overworked and you have so many things going on and you're juggling so many things because of your lack of faith, or because you have convinced yourself that you need to work that much. And for some reason, you have overfilled your plate with responsibilities, duties, for whatever, however you translate it or interpret it, that you have to do these things, that you're so fulfilled and congested with stress and anxiety when new blessings are like hanging out on amongst the outside of that circle, right? So you're in this bubble of anxiety and stress, or perhaps maybe you're not even stressed. That's the most dangerous part, where you're not technically stressed or anything, but there hasn't been a lot of change in your life. Well, new blessings, new opportunities, new relationships, new people, new circumstances, they're like knocking on your door, but they can't come in because you're so polluted and congested with old habits, old rituals, old friends, old things. So simplifying your life requires a lot of courage, because when you start to simplify, you're going to see emptiness. You might see an empty closet and only see your 5 favorite outfits, and you're going to be like, holy shit, I got rid of it's going to blow your mind, and it's going to force you to look at things from a new perspective, because you might have free time, right? If you got rid of 20 friends, now you only have 3 friends. You're like, whoa, if I lose 2 friends and I'm only down to 1. So at first, it's going to be weird. It's going to be awkward to, maybe, I'm not saying be a minimalist, but that's the whole concept here, is to start to minimalize your life in a way that you start to create room for what's coming. So this is sort of kind of a faithful conversation, because we're saying, okay, we're getting rid of stuff, we're simplifying your life, and we're decluttering as we purge, sort of like a cleansing. And we're getting things that are toxic, or or just stale. Just stale water, stale things that are just like, you know what, they're not adding to meaningfulness in my life. I'm going to get rid of them. And so you're going to have to choose, and you have to make those polarizing, concrete decisions. Is this adding to my life enough to where I need to keep it and it needs to be here? Or is it just creating space in my mind, in my closet, in my time, on my schedule? So simplify your life, and you will see that when you have more time, you can now allocate time to the relationships that matter, which might be the few people that are truly on your side and want you to develop, and they're influencing you in a positive way, or just showing you a new perspective, or perhaps the relationship that's going to make everything work, and that's the relationship you have with yourself. So that's number 2, simplify. And number 3 is focus on your spirituality. I've touched on it throughout this video, and I'm going to kind of wrap up as I close up. But focusing on your spirituality means a lot of different things. For some people, it might be, hey, maybe start to look at what's beyond what you were taught as a child, and start to question, perhaps the religion that you grew up with, or start to question and seek new truths. Go find your truth. Go find what's relevant to you, what sticks to you. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not a big advocate of religion. I think specific categories of religion, I feel that just they limit us more than they enlighten us. So when I say go expand your spirituality, is go explore energy, what's inside of it. Go explore, read, and find out what spirituality means to you. And you're going to find out there's a million different interpretations of what spirituality means. But I'll give you my take on spirituality. Is number 1, it's the development and the relationship that you have with yourself. It could either with yourself or God, or however you want to label it, or with the universe, but that's what it is. And you'll find out real quick that that's the same thing. God flows through you, the universe flows through you. It's all broadcasting from one medium, from one body, and so all those thoughts are reflected through your mind. And so the study of spirituality, or you developing your faith, and that relationship is having a relationship with the forces that be, with God, with the universe, or with Allah, or however you want to title it and put it in a bubble. That's just semantics or language. But what it is, it's understanding what's the life force energy, what's the chi that lights you up, that gives life to everything, and understanding what's beyond the unseen, right? So that you're no longer a surface dweller. A surface dweller is limited. So go find out what spirituality means for you. Perhaps not religious, but how can you become a spiritual person? I think a spiritual person is someone that has a depth of awareness, and a valuable man, a valuable woman, someone that is, worthy of being followed, or someone that is respected. It's is a clever individual that knows a lot about a lot of different topics, and so they're in a position where they can lead, they can inspire, and they have an understanding of this world as well as an understanding of themselves enough to see how they fit in this world and perhaps live up to a purpose and honor something. So a spiritual person, of course, is going to have some sort of a moral compass and be a righteous individual, and that's going to help you discern and make good judgment and influence your behavior in a way that is structured and ordered and to be respected, of course. So the highest value, I believe, when we look at an individual and when we look at an individual's like true value of who they truly are, as far as like their personality, that's your value lies inside your personality and your character. And when we look at that and we pull it all together, what that is that individual has depth of awareness. And when you have depth of awareness, you understand what's beyond the surface, right? What's beyond just me? Who am I? Right? So when you start to understand yourself beyond the surface, you got to understand this world, how twisted and how backwards it is. You can start to see, shit, yo, everything's inside out. Everything's a setup. But when you have a spiritual relationship with the higher force, and when you have a spiritual understanding of how things work, whether it be right or wrong or whatever, but when you have found out and you have a relationship with your faith, everything starts to have meaning. It starts to have, like, you can make concrete decisions and uphold them and honor them. Other than that, then your moral compass is fuzzy and you don't like what's right or wrong. So it's hard to become a righteous individual without really exploring what are my principles, what are my true values, right? And those morals and principles, those are guiding factors that help you create the lens that you need to have to be indestructible and to be powerful, because shit's gonna happen. This world naturally is working against you. I mean, society. Now, this universe is working for you, but this world wants to tear you down, limit you, and get you to consume and break you down. So that's just the patterns that I've seen. It wants to steal, kill, and destroy. Right? That if you don't have a depth of awareness, you'll start to see, yo, everything wants to steal, kill itself, destroy itself. And if you don't get on and understand that, you will slowly start to erode to those patterns. Unless you're a spiritual person, you can see beyond the bullshit. You can see beyond the lies and be grounded in that. So when things happen to you, you're like, it's just testing me. It's all right. This is for me to rise above the challenge. This is for me to rise back up. This is for me to learn, to become stronger. So when you're faced with adversity, you're like, I'm a faithful man of integrity. So I'm just going to rise up through this. I'm going to overcome this. And I see solutions. I don't see problems. Problems are for me to truly understand and see who I truly am. And that's how you build confidence. So that's a man of integrity has that perspective. And that only comes from a spiritual person. So work on your spirituality, create the time, and look at your schedule. So that you can say, hey, I'm gonna work on my meditation. I'm gonna explore. I'm gonna look at my morning. I'm gonna start to assess which ones of my friends are spiritual. What are the types of people that I want to be around? Maybe you're not at the level where like you're gonna start eliminating, cutting friends, but first you gotta be like, what type of person do I need to be a positive influence in where I'm going? So those are the 3 points. When you lack, now in closing, when you lack a lot of the stuff that I talked about knowing thyself, knowing thy truth, so that you can live in your truth, the only option that you have is to destroy yourself, to compare yourself to others. And this is the default of how most of the world lives. And if you're following me, or if you're close to me in some way, shape, I'm going to make sure that you see that, and then I communicate that to you so we could drift away and reject that. So a strong man rejects what is not aligned with his purpose. And when you don't take time to love yourself and know who you truly are, all you can do is compare, judge, copy, and you can't be in a creative state. So what can you do? You only surrender to those that have taken the time to honor what their vision is and to get clear on what, so everybody else that's clear on who they are and what they want to achieve and how powerful they can be, you will have to submit to them and you will have to take orders. So your only default choice is to follow them. And not that there's anything wrong with, being the apprentice or having mentors or learning from others or employers guiding you. It's just when you start to accept that as your only option. So when you don't know your true self, the default is self-destruction. And you are just copying other people and regurgitating and just dancing around and going in circles, trying to find out what you think fulfills you. All right, so that's what it is. Don't get lost in the sauce of temporarily putting patches and band-aids on things that you think will make you happy on the surface. That's a superficial outlook on a very limited level of awareness. And remember, you have depth of awareness because you're true to thyself and you know thyself. And when you know thyself and you've taken the time to curate and nurture that relationship, you're a powerful being. And not everyone will like you, of course, but you could finally be true and start to attract who is meant to be in your life. And from that point, you can create as a powerful man, as a creative man. Ideas are going to flow through you. Inspiration, you're going to start to see clearly. Real, recognize real. Bottom line, this journey ain't for you if you're not willing to change and take it however you want to take it. But if you don't create a sacrifice or willing to give something up to make some concrete change and shake things up, don't be surprised if the world's not shaking up and conspiring to meet your wishes. All right, stay true.